All right, let's get to a listener question. This question comes from the Discord from DJ Wavy D, and they asked, could WWE benefit from using a weight class to create divisions in pro wrestling? And I think what you're referring to is like a lightweight and a heavyweight division. But I think, so answer to the question, yes, I do think they could benefit from weight classes. I think I've actually done this topic early on in this podcast life because it's a thought that I come back to quite often that I think could benefit WWE, especially in this era of like trying to ground wrestling in some sort of realism. I think that weight classes could definitely help out WWE in just creating more opportunity for different wrestlers. But I think I would take it one step farther if I was in charge of doing this and I had the choice. I would do 3 weight classes for men. I would do a lightweight division that was under 200 pounds. This is for your real little guys. This is for your AEW size guys. You have a specific division for these guys, and you have a specific set of titles that are exclusive to these, what I'd call undersized wrestlers. Then I would have a division similar to the UFC, a light heavyweight division at 200 to 250 pounds. And this would consist of the bulk of your wrestlers, your Seth Rollins, your Austin Theory, the main bulk meat of the roster would compete in the light heavyweight division. And then I would have a 250 plus heavyweight division for guys like Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, your big kind of Goliath type guys that you know, they're spectacles. They're the old school Vince McMahon, as people tend to say, style of wrestler, and you have those guys fight for a very specific heavyweight title. And so I think by doing that, I think by introducing weight classes, number one, you could give your champions a little bit of a break, because I don't think it would be necessary for every champion to perform at every premium live event. You could, in the way that UFC kind of rotates the main event with a different champion, I think you could do that in WWE, and guys would be working, instead of 12 premium live events a year, your champions would be working, 6 at most premium live events. You could work every third one, and every so often, maybe WrestleMania, every belt is defended, and maybe there's like Night of Champions where every belt is defended. But other than that, you could rotate out, this premium live event is a lightweight championship, or this premium live event is a light heavyweight championship. And the one thing I would say to make sure that it didn't get stagnant is that I would allow people to fight above their weight class. And I think that's an option in most fighting companies anyway, and UFC especially. But I think that you would allow guys like Seth Rollins for a special event to go up and fight someone like Brock Lesnar for a heavyweight title, so that you could continue to feature guys that aren't in that 250 plus range. You could feature them in those big style main events, but there would still be a place for them to comfortably go back to that had a light heavyweight belt. So you basically, I think you could, with the amount of people WWE and the amount of shows they have, I think they could easily support a heavyweight champion with some form of, I don't think I'd have a mid-card there. I think I would just have the heavyweight champion. Guys like Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre really don't have business being like an intercontinental champion. They do it, but they don't have a business there. 200 to 250, I would do the light heavyweight championship and the intercontinental championship. So you have those 2 belts in that division. And then the under 200, I would do a lightweight champion and the United States champion. And that's how I'd break down those belts. And it's really you're really just kind of adding one more belt, because you're taking away one of your heavyweight belts, right? You don't need a Universal and a WWE champion. What you need is a heavyweight champion and a light heavyweight champion. You're adding a lightweight championship belt, which they've had before on different occasions. And you're just separating out these things by weight class. And I get that maybe it handicaps the 250 plus guys, but they don't have business, fighting the smaller guys on that regular of a basis anyway. I like the idea of rotating champions at different premium live events. I like the idea that if you have weight classes, you can implement some kind of power ranking system, right? With records that actually matter, which then makes like Monday Night Raw feel special because, let's say a guy goes up and fights above his weight class that could hold more weight within his division or hold more weight within the division above it. It would make every match matter instead of so often it feels like, why are they making this match? What is the purpose, right? Ludwig Kaiser versus Cody Rhodes. Who does that benefit? What is the purpose? But if there were points on the line or records on the line, I do think that it would make for a very interesting dynamic within professional wrestling. And I think AEW toyed around with this idea a little bit by using records, but eventually they just dropped the ball because I guess committing to a logical system over a long-term period can be a little tougher rather than just, panicking and throwing together dream matches, which is what I think both companies typically try to do. And I think that typically falls flat. I think that especially in an era where WWE doesn't use a lot of authority figures, I think that it would be fun to have Adam Pearce play sort of a Dana White-ish type character where post premium live events, he could sit down and have a press conference where he talks about who he thinks is next in line for that title. Now, I know there'd be a lot of flushing out. I know that it would handicap a little bit of the stories that aren't surrounding titles, but with 5 titles for the men, and I guess for the women, you could do, 2 or 3 different titles, but I'm more talking in the men's division. I think that it would just create buzz around every show. It just, I guess the problem for WWE is that it involves a ton of commitment. The follow-up question to that was, could the women's division have 2 different belts, one for the pure women's wrestlers and one for the more diva model type of wrestler? I get the logic. I 100% understand the logic, and probably in the 90s, you'd have no problem selling people on that. I think, unfortunately, in 2023, there's just too many hurdles to make that make sense, even though it is a little bit logical. I think that someone would label it offensive. Somebody somewhere would label it offensive and say splitting people up based on like wrestlers versus models would be, sexist. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I also don't know that I agree that that's necessary to kind of flesh out the women's division. I think what would be more important is that WWE needs to really lay into more character development with the women's wrestlers. I get, like, it's hard to believe that Carmella in a WWE ring could ever beat Ronda Rousey or Shayna Baszler. That's a problem. And that's where the logic of splitting them into 2 divisions makes sense. But also you can just create equalizing situations, backstories, right? Managers, valets to the ring. You can create different situations of like, maybe Carmella's just a extremely clever character who tends to outsmart her opponent, or she's very lucky and lucky things happen, or she has a partner or a manager who is able to help her do things that we don't believe to be just regularly possible for somebody like that. But it's the lack of backstory for me that is the biggest problem in WWE versus like needing divisions or needing to split the women into 2 divisions. Backstories create advantage. Like, they create situations for wrestlers who may not, you don't believe everybody can beat Brock Lesnar, but if there's some kind of backstory that leads us to believe why it's possible, then sometimes we can get behind that. So, I guess with the women, you could create weight classes. I know weight classes are touchy with some women's sports, even though they use them in UFC and there's no problem. I think real athletes don't have an issue with weight classes, but But I think that you could use weight classes and just have anybody who is that like quote unquote pure wrestler fight in that upper division, and then some of the ones that are smaller or less fight oriented, you could have them fight in that kind of underclass. That would make sense.